Welcome to the Dalen Show. How is everybody doing on this lovely day? I hope you all are well. And if you're not doing well, I surely hope this episode can bring you a little bit of laughter and smiling throughout this time. Um, I appreciate you guys for getting the opportunity to come through your phone screens, your computers, your homes, your cars, wherever it may be you're listening. I appreciate the opportunity to be coming through and thank you for the continued support. Second season's underway. We're kicking it off with the banger, man. And we've got through the first episode and I'm having a lot of fun throughout this journey. And it's been a lot of learning opportunities and a lot of building connections. So this week, that's another big time connection that I've made. This week I have the one, the only, and the legend himself, Mr. Joe Booker, aka Broadway Joe. You people clap it up. Clap it up for my guest on the show. But Mr. Booker, I appreciate you for being on. How are you doing, first of all, and how is pandemic life, even a year later, still treating you, and how is just life in general right now?
It's great, man. It's great. Thanks for the opportunity and keep up the good work. So excited to be on the show.
I appreciate that. For the listeners that may not know who you are exactly, they don't have a real feel who you are. Could you just give them a brief overview of who it is you are, where you're from, what you've been able to do throughout your life that have gotten you to where you are today, and what it is you're doing today as well?
Okay, I got a radio show over 30 years on Power 92, as well as I got a TV show that's been on over 25 years, late night on CW Arkansas. I also do a talk show on KOKY that we've been doing now for the last 15 years. I'm also the director of programming for Cumulus Media, where I oversee the programming on our radio stations, which are powered to KOKY Praise, B98.5, Alice 1077, KARN, KAAY, the Sports Animal. We also have a traffic network and a news network, the ARN News Network. So that kind of keeps me busy. I got the Jammers charity basketball team that travels across the state. They've done that for over 30 years. And I coach the league football, the Mighty Vikings. We've been around for a while also. So some of the things that keep me busy.
Uh, for me personally, what I've been able to do with this and what I like to do is allow the guests to put their voice out, put their story out, put their legacy out, put what it is they want to put out. So I go from start to finish, and that's what we're going to do here today. For the people that don't know, Mr. Joe Booker was born in the great state of South Carolina. Obviously, is now within us in the state of Arkansas for the past, couple of decades. Mr. Booker, talk about your culture around you growing up in South Carolina. I know you have a huge story that you share with me and Miss Griffin's students a couple of weeks back. And so share with the people what was your culture like growing up, and also what were some of the things that kept you busy as a child that you kind of still even do today?
Well, I don't normally share it, but I shared the part of me, and I normally start from basically the military and how I got to Arkansas. But I was adopted at about 7 months old, and beautiful family, raised in a great home, um, and worked around the farm, doing a lot of great stuff. And so I had a pretty good life. I was little different in high school, being an only child with my adopted parents. I had an opportunity to do a number of things, and from sports to track to football to basketball and a number of things like that, and kept me very versed and very well rounded. And was president of my junior and senior class, and a lot of those things, you know, are fond memories of a great high school, and then on to the military. And from the military, I went there to be able to take advantage of the GI Bill. I was able to go to college, Arkansas State University, and got an associate's degree there. And then I came back and got a real good job working for Falcon Jet there at the airport. And I got an opportunity to leave Falcon Jet and go and uh, come to work at a radio station. And I started at a little station in Lono called KWTD back in the early 80s. And from there, I went to the original KOKY, which was 12:50 a.m. And then on Christmas Day, 1987, Power 92 came on the air, and in February of 1988, I came to work at the radio station as their nighttime guy, and I worked from the nights in 2 years and moved to morning drive, which was what I did at KWTD. And from there, I basically was the start of the legacy that we built down with KOKY. I mean, at Power 92. And in 1987, people probably can relate a lot to the deregulation of the banks, but they also deregulated radio stations to where at that before that, President Clinton did that. You were only able to own one AM station and one FM station in a market. But when he deregulated, you could own up to 5 FMs and 3 AMs. And so that's when the buying frenzy started, and corporate America stepped in the radio and start buying them up. And we were first owned by Citadel Broadcasting, and it's a good company to work for. Was a great experience for me. I got an opportunity. Our owner actually had a ranch in Montana, and every year we would go to his ranch for our company meetings. And it was, if you've never gone to Montana, it's definitely something to see, but a great experience and going up and visiting there. In the late 2008, 2009, we were bought by our current company now, which is Cumulus Media, which is another good company. And that's kind of where we are right now. I still do the same things that I've been doing for them and overseeing the programming from all of our radio stations. But that's kind of where we are now with it. And it's different kind of a gamut now with some of the things that we do, but it's still fun for me because I still get up and make it to work every morning. So that's a little bit about me without throwing in too much stuff, but I hope that was brief enough.
No, absolutely. I love those responses. I used to say it on the first season. I would get short responses from my guests on the answers, and that doesn't really help me. That doesn't really help me build on the questions that I would like to further with. So I actually appreciate that a lot. There's no time limit. We're not on these schedules, so express whatever it is you want to say. Get everything off. I want to backtrack a little bit. I know you grew up during a rough time, what is called the civil rights era. And you have the opportunity, I know, to probably sit through a lot of that and even learn and obviously bestow it upon younger people today that where you are right now is a blessing because we didn't have a lot of opportunities as Black people back then. So talk about just some of the things that, are kind of different from back then to now. What experiences that you see that, are so different from today's environment and social change?
Let me first say I'm old, but I don't think I'm civil rights era old yet. I don't know. I think my parents experienced some of that, but I did see a lot of it as a child and experienced a lot of it. I was around, I was a small boy when Dr. King was assassinated. So I saw a lot of the struggles that we went through as African Americans. So I just, right now, especially after yesterday and the verdict that we saw yesterday, I go all the way back to the Rodney King, and so I saw that also. And so to see a conviction with George Floyd tells me that we are moving hopefully in the right direction for as African Americans. But yeah, I remember as a child working in the fields. I really didn't have to, but it was just a thing that I wanted to do because everybody worked in the fields. So being from South Carolina, the big crop there was tobacco, and we did what they call cropping tobacco, and it's if you've never been into the real tobacco, it will definitely discourage you from smoking because it's a lot of gum involved with that, and you can just the tar and everything that you see when you first get the tobacco. And back then, it's not like it is now, not nearly like it is now. I mean, that was a big deal. In most southern states, they talked about the cotton fields, but in North Carolina and South Carolina, it was the tobacco fields. And, those were some of the things that I kind of experienced when I was growing up. I saw a lot of the struggles, as you said, from the civil rights era with my ancestors and especially my parents. but we were on a farm, so we owned our stuff. So I saw a lot of the things that my father used to have to do to, and at the time I really didn't understand a lot of it. But as I got older, I learned to respect some of the decisions and some of the things that he had to do to be able to survive back then. We're a very proud and prideful family, and there were a lot of things that at a young age, I really just didn't understand. But as I got older, I was able to understand some of the things that and the sacrifices that my parents made for us to have better lives. So I guess for me, one of the big things that I see is the change, and I would say to everybody is that in order to know where you're going, you got to know a little bit about where you've been. And it's kind of hard to watch and see what our ancestors have gone through and not be respectful for what you could do and what you could accomplish and the roads that they paved for us to be able to do some of the things, including myself. The things that I'm able to do in my career, in my life, would not have been possible if it were not for the sacrifices that my parents and other people made. As you said, back during the civil rights era, there was a serious struggle, and um, I'm just thankful for what a lot of them went through to make it possible for us, and especially the younger generation, to be able to do and enjoy the things that we do in life. So that's some of the stuff that I would say, especially to young people, is history. And I say that because I'm a big history person. I love knowing a lot about where I came from, but also about history in America and history in the world. I think that that's just it's been very enlightening for me, and it's helped me to better understand some of the things that I want to accomplish in life and some of the things that I want to do. I always believe that once you know where you've gone or where you come from, it helps you to better understand where you're going to go in life. And that old saying about what goes around comes around.
Mhm.
Some of the things that you saw back then, we're seeing some of the same things now. So that's just a little bit of my thoughts on my life and some of the things that I see now between the older generation and the younger generation.
I think that's very important on what you talked about. I think it's always great to have a role model that can understand things that we've been able to go through as teenagers, as young adults, as young men and young women. And I like that you touched on that. Backtracking a little bit, going on to, you talked about you after high school went into the military, and a lot of your journalism work started in the military. So talk about how you even got involved with the military, and what was your first initial reaction to kind of being there, and how was it different from being back home in South Carolina?
Oh, it was a great experience. My first my first plane ride was to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, as I joined the Air Force, and um, it was definitely a good experience. I just, it's interesting because I was just talking with a friend of mine that has a teenager, and he was asking me about it because he was dealing something with his son. I think that we have to understand that 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 once you finish high school and once you're leaving, I think that sometimes um, you could be in a position where you think that you know what you're going to do or how you're going to do it. But I think that there's some growing pains between high school and college or job or career or whatever it is. And I think it's very important that parents, as well as mentors, role models, that that's a very important time for young people, because first of all, you're trying to figure out, and I know for myself, I'm trying to figure out what are my plans with my life. My parents asked me that question, and I end up asking my children that question when they were sophomores in high schools and freshmen. What do you want to do when you're growing up? But I think that it's one of those things to where when you're young, you really think that you know, but it's one of those things where you can't say I don't know, uh, but it's a pride thing of trying to figure out what you're gonna do and where you're gonna be. And I think a lot of it has to be some planning going in, and there's some things. And I always try to tell young people to, if you can afford it, to volunteer, because if you think
Yeah.
that you want to be something, volunteer. try to find a mentor or somebody in that career that can help you to understand it. And I always talk about my wife because my wife wanted to be a nurse.
Mhm.
And the first time she got an opportunity to be around the medical field, the first time she saw blood, she fainted. And so it was immediate that this ain't going to be your career.
Mhm.
So, uh, but that was a good thing because she didn't spend 2 years in nursing school or something like that to figure out that this is not where you're going to be. And I think the earlier that you do things like that, the better off it is for you. Um, and there's nothing wrong with dreaming and wanting to be. I get it all the time when I mentor elementary kids. Is everybody wants to play sports or be a professional wrestler or something like that, and I always try to encourage them to follow your dreams because I think it's very important to have dreams.
Mhm.
Um, and but the thing about it is, always have a backup plan. You know, maybe this is what you want to do, but what else can you do? And I think that's very important. You have to be versatile enough to say, you know what, if I don't do this, then I can do that. And you should start trying that at an early age. You know, don't put all your eggs in one basket and say, hey, look, I'm going to be going to the NBA. And then as you get older, you figure out that that may not be my calling to be there, and you don't have a backup plan. So I think it's very important to always have multiple plans of what you'd like to do, and then try and figure out which way you want to go with it. So that's my kind of thing with, especially with young people on planning their life. But I think that graduating from high school is it's a very difficult thing. I just got to say it was difficult for me, and it's going to be difficult for most people if you don't have a good plan. So try and plan as well as you can. Stay in your books because a good education can get you farther than anything else in the world. No matter what you do or how you do it or what you want to be, being educated is very important because if you can learn one thing, you can train and learn something else. That's what most people are looking for. And there's nothing wrong with being your own boss. Tell everybody, man, if you can afford to be your own boss, and you can be an inventor and you come up with some big invention, or if you're working for a cell phone business, and what happened to the family businesses and those kind of things. If your family has something going on, there's nothing wrong with working for the family and being a part of it. That's a good thing, especially if your parents want you to be a part of it, because a lot of times they want to turn it over to you, and they can feel good about that because I've left this with my children. So those are some of the things that I encourage young people to do is really start planning early. And once you lay down your plan, execute your plan to the best of your ability and have a backup plan so that if this don't go right, you can fall back on this. And that's what I would say. I was in the military, from the military to Falcon Jet, but always loved DJing. And so when the opportunity came, I was able to take that opportunity. And I had to make the toughest decision I had to make was whether I wanted, because I wasn't making no money. It was great doing the DJ thing. I made a lot of money on the side, but I really wasn't making any money to do that. But I had to make a decision. Do I want to do this for my career, or do I want to work on a job to make money? And I'll tell you, the one thing I can say about it is there's not a lot of fun waking up going to a job that you don't like to do. So always try to find something that you like to do and give it 110% on doing it. And normally those kind of things work out.
I love that answer. I really do. For all my kids getting ready to graduate high school and going to the next step of life, go back about 3 minutes and just repeat what he just listen over and over again what he just said. And you don't have to be rich. You don't have to have a lot of money in your pockets to start something new and start something big. Start a podcast. I'm starting a podcast. I'm starting my own business. Start a YouTube channel. Start a streaming channel. Start what you want to do. He said it again. Don't do something just because it pays a lot of money and you're not really loving it. Do something that you really love to do. I love that response, Mr. Booker. I thank you for that. You talked about earlier also in the military when you kind of began working into the journalism field for the Armed Forces Korean Network. Talk about that relationship and how you got involved with that and how you feel that has allowed you to work to where you are today and it's allowed you to stay on the radio for so long.
Well, I was just really kind of DJing, and it kind of led to that from DJing in the club. And one of the guys said, "Hey, man, we got this overnight shift that we need somebody to watch the studio at night." And so I took advantage of it and got some time off and that kind of thing. And I really got some really good experience. I didn't really get any extra money or anything for doing it, but it was just the experience. And I kind of fell into that. And then when I got into college, I was doing a lot of parties and that kind of thing. And one thing led to the other. And the biggest break I had was I was at Arkansas State. And at the time, I was playing a little bit of basketball, and I got hurt and couldn't really play. And the athletic director asked me, would you be willing to keep the scorebook? And so I was able to keep the scorebook. And the guy that does the public address announcing, he came in one night and he thought he could do it, but he couldn't do it because of his voice. He had like a laryngitis or sore throat, and he couldn't really talk. And so he said, well, hey, come over here. And all the time that I'd been working there keeping the books, I was watching him do it. And I always said to myself, I could do better than that. And I would start practicing. I would be driving in my car and I'd be thinking of things that I could see. The starting lineup for the night, starting at guard, and I'm, just going through these things. And I'd been practicing this stuff, not knowing that this opportunity was going to come up. And man, when it came, I was ready. And needless to say, he never got his job back. And that kind of led to me getting into the broadcasting field. And my athletic director came back to me and said, man, I didn't know you could do that. You ever thought about getting into broadcasting? You need to start taking a few classes. And so I did. And that's kind of how it all began for me. Even after college, I mean, even after the military, it wasn't like it was something that I really wanted to do. Always, I never had looked into being a radio announcer or a disc jockey. That wasn't something that I was prepared for, and I wish I had, because when I was growing up, I lived about 2 miles from the radio station, and I'd gone to it a couple of times, but just for some reason or another, just never was something that at the time I thought I would want to do. But when you get out in the real world and you find about them jobs and you start going to a job that you don't like to do, you start figuring out, well, what do I really like to do? And so this was just a true blessing for me. And I thank God every day that I'm able to do a job that I really like to do.
Hey man, he talked about that, and you remember what he said? He said be versatile. You see how he talked about that? He said he would be prepared for another job, and guess what? That guy wasn't prepared for his job. He wasn't ready for his job, and he took another person's job. No disrespect to that man, but if you're versatile enough, see, you can be prepared for any situation. So he's backing it up, and I think something that's big for you is, I'm going to go forward a little bit, is giving back to the community as well. You do a lot of different things you talked about earlier. Your Power 92 charity basketball team. I know you do a lot of different things within the community. Talk about those things, the Vikings Youth Football Association. Talk about what's your investment in the youth and the community, and why that is so important for you to be involved in so many different things around the city and the area.
I started I started coaching Little League football because I saw people doing it, and it's kind of like the announcer. I kind of looked at it and was like, you know what, I can do better than that. I've never coached. I took it in college. I'm a physical education major, and I played it. But I saw some of the things that the coach was doing, and I'm like, man, I can do better than that. And so the next year, I started working on getting a team. And it's an interesting story about the team that I got, and I don't share it a lot, but I'm going to share the story with you because it's a thing of opportunity. But I still have the article from the first game that I coached, and it was for a team, the Jacksonville Red Vikings. And what happened was I was going to school at ASU BB, and I was majoring in physical education, and I had kids that wanted to play football, and I wanted to keep them busy. And I put them on a team, and it was actually a team that was on a military base. And so I went to practice one day, and I always go to practice. But I was watching them practice, and they were warming up, but they were actually marching like they were in the military. And I'm thinking, what does that have to do with football? Mm-hmm. But I mean, the guys were military people, and they really didn't know a lot about football, but they were coaches, and they were volunteers and that type of thing. And so that's where the ideal came, like, I could do better than that. And so I knew this friend that worked for the city, and I said, well, hey man, I wanted to see if maybe we can get a football team next year, and I can get my kids involved because I don't see a lot of African American kids out there. So I'd like to definitely get my boys involved. And so he called the guy up and say, hey, look, I got this guy that's in college. He's a physical education major, and he wants to coach football. And the guy said, well, we got a team. We got a team that needs a coach. It's the Red Vikings. They had won a game in 2 years, and we really need somebody that knows a little something that can come out there and try to help the kids out, that kind of thing. And so they invited me to come to their meeting. And it was interesting when I showed up at the meeting. Uh, First of all, I was the only African American in the room. And when we got into the meeting, I went in with my friend, and he was white, and we were real good friends. And they called an emergency meeting with everybody except me. So left me sitting at the table, and they came back out of the meeting, and I had talked to him on the phone, and he was, hey, we do need a good coach, and we'd be glad to have you. The meeting was going to be this day, and I got there. I kind of noticed it was kind of like something wasn't right, but I really didn't know. And they called this emergency meeting, and everybody went out. Left me sitting there, and they came back in, and they introduced all the coaches, and they introduced my friend who really didn't know anything about football. He was just going to help me out a little bit because we were friends, as the head coach of the red team. And I just kind of played it off, and I'm like, the guy talked to me and everything. But after we left the meeting, I talked to my friend, and he was a little bit embarrassed because he said, man, I had no idea it was going to be like that. But they said that basically they didn't know you, and you were African American, and so they'd rather for me to be the head coach, and you can work with me until they know a little bit more about you. And so I was like, okay, wasn't a big deal because I don't know a lot about them either. So needless to say, we got the team going, and we got the plan. And as I said, they hadn't won a game in 2 years, and it was a big thing back then in the early '80s about Satoma League football in Jacksonville. And we actually won our first game, and the newspaper came out, and they had a big article in the paper about it. But it was so interesting because they had my friend's picture, and with they had my picture in the paper with his name under it. And so the guy that worked for the newspaper was taking pictures of the game. And he went out after the game. He went to the press box and said, "Well, who's the guy that's coaching, the head coach of the red team?" And they said, "Bill so and so and so and so." The paper came out, and it had my picture in it with his name under it. And people started asking about it, and the parents started asking about it. And my friend, he told him, he said, "Well, we went over to the meeting, and because Joe was black, they didn't want him to be the head coach because they didn't know a lot about him." And these white parents, because most of my players are white, they got outraged, and they went to the commissioner and said, "This is the guys who are working with our kids. We don't care if you've never had a black coach before. He's the guy we want as the head coach of our team. And we don't like the racism that you're doing when you didn't let him be the head coach, because when we go to practice, he's coaching the kids." And so from that point on, I became the head coach of the team. But the one thing about that, of course, when things like that go down, and it don't go down the way the people in charge want it to go down, it wasn't an easy battle for me. It wasn't an easy thing for me to still stay there. But I stayed in the league and coached for about 6 years. And everything started changing because we started winning and things like this. And one of the parents and I said, "You know what? We're going to get our own team." And that's how the Mighty Vikings started. And that's been over 25 years ago. And so the Vikings are still around. As a matter of fact, I was at practice on yesterday. We'll be at practice again on tomorrow because we're doing 7-on-7 now. But that's kind of how I got into to the Little League football thing. And the Jammers was one of those things that we was DJs, people would call us at the radio station and say, "Hey, we want to play y'all in band." And it really started with us as basketball players. I was playing, and I don't think any of the guys that are there now were there at that time because this was back in the early '90s. And we would go around and play basketball across the state and that kind of stuff. And everybody would start getting ringers. So we started getting ringers. And so what we do now with the Jammers is we pride ourselves in having the best ringers. Okay. We go out and recruit every summer in the Dunbar Summer League, and we try to get the best basketball players around the state of Arkansas to be Jammers. And the guys love it. They become a part of it. And so they bought into it. And it's a big thing. The Jammers have raised over $2 million for charitable organizations across the state of Arkansas. Just traveled around. We've had seasons that we've had close to 35 games. You know, now we're down to about 15 games a season, and we only play on Saturdays. We used to play Friday and Saturday. It was just, it still is a lot of fun. We didn't play for COVID, but we'll be back. Our first game in 2022 will be at Harris Elementary, Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. It's a traditional game that we always do. The kids get an opportunity to come out and do their Martin Luther King speeches and things like that. And the community is invited out at McAlmont to be a part of it. So that's a big deal for us.
I love that answer. And I want to stay on this topic a little bit, but then we can go back into the chronological order. But for anyone who doesn't know about the radio station and is, you know, out of state and has never heard the radio station, I think one of the biggest things that stands out for me is when you have callers call in and share their response or their opinion on a certain topic. I think I was listening this morning and
Power People Poll.
yes, and a woman called and said that she'd been married to her husband for 6 years, and throughout the 6 years he was cheating on her. And you know, callers call in and share their responses and their opinions on that. How important is that to the show, and how did that even become a part of the show? And I think that's a very big part of the show. But why is that so important for you to be a part of the show?
I think that gives us an opportunity to kind of let people, especially today after the George Floyd incident. Our question was, "Were you surprised?" It's a way to give our listeners that voice, and that's what we try to be, is that voice. And there is no black talk. So this is an opportunity for African Americans to kind of get it out, for their voice to be heard. And you know, before social media, it was interesting because I think my engineer he's in his 20s now, but he was talking to me about a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about, you know, how he goes around different places. And he's a white guy, but he's always saying, he says, "Man, everywhere I go, everybody knows about Power 92, and you know, and they listen to the station. I tell them this, and they ask me about you, and this." He said, "Man, y'all are like Facebook." I was like, "Man, before Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, it was radio."
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the keys to success for a good radio station are information, education, and entertainment. And those should be the three elements. But I think that the radio now has kind of gotten away from that because of the downsizing and taking a lot of people off, and you don't have people to give people the information that they use. We've taken a lot of pride, and if you listen to the radio station, you'll hear us talking about the Marconi Award. And the Marconi Award, the only other radio station that's African American that I know that have won that award is V103 in Atlanta. And the Marconi Award is an award that's given to, it's not a black or white or Hispanic station. It's the best radio station in the country. And they base that on your community service, the things that you've done, the ratings on your radio station, and that type of thing. And we've been blessed to have won that award. And that's something that for a lot of radio stations, I tell people, that's like the Oscar or the Grammy when you win the Marconi. And so that's been a big deal for us. But that's what makes us what we are. It's that information and education. I put the information and education before the entertainment. And the music is the entertainment. But then a lot of people say the music is the most important thing on the radio station. But I will say to you that for us, the most important things is what you get between the songs. And what we're gonna give you between the songs is information. We're gonna let you know, we were very involved with the COVID, making sure that people knew about, social distancing, wearing their masks, but we're also big into now trying to get the word out, the importance of getting a vaccination for COVID-19. A lot of people don't, whatever it is, believe or not believe in it, but we are pro at Power 92, pro vaccine. and encouraging people to, if we're going to get back to doing the things that we normally do, uh, you know, we're hoping that people will get that vaccine. We can get back out in the real world. I've taken it, and as a matter of fact, most of our workers have taken it also.
Absolutely, I'm with you there on that pro-vaccine. We all want to get back to a normal lifestyle. I think that would help a lot of us. We've been able to learn a lot about ourselves throughout this time, but I think we're all at this point, a year later, saying, "Well, I want to get back to normal life. I kind of get back to the experience of enjoying my lifestyle the way it was." I want to talk about go now. We can backtrack a little bit. How did you originally get involved with the radio station? How did that contact become within? And when I think of it, did you ever see when you started, did you ever think it would ever get this big? Did you ever think it would become such a stable opportunity for so many years down the road?
No, no, no. As a matter of fact, when I started in the radio business, I knew that radio announcers move around a lot.
Mhm.
And so I said one of the things I started doing at first was I started saving my money because you may be out of a job at any time. So I started off saying, you know what, I want to have enough money to live a couple of months until I can find another job if I lose my job in radio. And so I've always kind of lived like that. It's been like, you know, 3 months, and 3 months turned to 6 months, and 6 months turned into 9 months, and then it's a year. So I got enough money to where I can live a year if something goes wrong. And so I've just always been prepared that, one day I may not be doing this and I'll have to do something different. But I had no idea that I would have been at Power 92 for over 30 years when I started there. I mean, I actually, for a lot of people, they may remember that I did leave one time and I was only gone for about 6 months and I came back. But no idea. I'm probably one of the longest tenured announcers in the country. There are a few guys that have been at stations longer than me, but not in this format. Normally, it's a news talk guy can stay for a long time, but for normally an urban guy, there are some guys that I know that have been around as long as I have, but it's not a lot of them. Very few.
What's been your motivation to keep going? I know you can have a love for something, but you can also lose some motivation, especially during the pandemic. What's been your motivation to keep you going?
Man, I love my family. I love my wife. I love my kids. We're very active family, and I'll always say my father was a big family man. We always have big family reunions and stuff like that. So I think that's it. I mean, we pray every morning. I before I leave home and go to work, because I'm up like at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. But every morning before I leave, my wife and I, we pray for a better day and dealing with whatever is going to go on during the day. And so it's been one of those things for me where uh, I love the information. And so what I do is I get up every morning and I fill myself up with information. And it's really good now because I can visit all the social media sites. I can do all the stuff, and I try to get in and give people information that can help them through the day. My talk show this week, we're talking about uh, $25,000 grants for 501c3 nonprofits that are dealing with the Black community, which is a big thing. This is Drug Take Back Week, and we're encouraging people that if you got non-prescription drugs, make sure you turn that stuff in. And then the Million Meals with Our Best Bank, and a lot of people may not know. All Our Best Banks have it in there, but we do something at the watershed, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and that kind of thing. And that's when you start thinking about that. But Our Best Bank is thinking about the kids that are not going to have a meal during the summer. So they do this Million Meals things to feed kids during the summer. So I think all those things are great. And every week on my talk show, we have different guest ins that really make a big difference with community stuff. So it's not like a talk show. It's more like a talk information show. And I love doing it because I love giving people good information. And that's a good thing. I had a couple of people that called me. They heard me talking about the 501c3 and were very excited about, they have nonprofit organizations. They got over $1 million that they want to give to Black organizations. So it's a great thing to talk about, and you're helping people. So I love it.
again, I go back into that. I think the number one thing I want to take out of this how compassionate Mr. Booker is. He's always willing to give. I think that's one of the biggest things for him. He's always willing to give, and that's always been his mindset. Talk about your TV show. I know you mentioned it earlier. For anyone that might not know, on the CW channel here in
Sorry
Arkansas.
about that.
You're okay. Your TV show on the CW channel. I know you talked about it earlier. Go into mention about how that became started and what that is going and how that's been able to rise above to where it is today.
Yeah, my TV show started back in the '90s, and I went to Columbia, South Carolina, and worked there at the radio station for about 6 months. And one of the goals when I came back, uh, I, probably the best thing that ever happened in my life,
Mhm.
because I grew up in South Carolina and I listened to a radio station called WWDM, Big DM. It actually came on when I was still in high school. And so a dream of mine was to one day go and work at that radio station. And so when the opportunity came, it was a blessing for me because Power 92 was hitting its stride at the time. I think I'd been the program director for about 3 or 4 years, and we made some major accomplishments with the radio station. The radio station had gotten up to being one of the top stations in the market, and I got an opportunity because of the success at the radio station to go back and work at WWDM. And at the time, WWDM was the top rated Black radio station in America. Not the most listened to, but the ratings were phenomenal. When I got there, it had a 23 share of the market. That means like 1 out of every 4 people listened to that radio station. It was the highest rated station in America. And I wanted to know the secret. I wanted to know how that success and everything. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to be there. Um, and when I got there, it wasn't all that I thought it was. But it was a great thing for me because I was able to get it out of my system. And a lot of times people will ask you, well, if you could do it all over again, would you do it? And I think I would have done it. I got
Mhm.
um, I got paid a lot more to go there, which helped me when I came back here, because I would have never gotten the money that I got when I came back here if I had stayed here, because I was promoted from within. And that's another thing. If you ever get promoted from within, your employers sometimes feel like, well, we gave you an opportunity, so you kind of owe us a little bit and that kind of thing. But when I got an opportunity to go there, it was a good thing, and I left there, and I didn't have, really wasn't looking to come back here. I was actually going to be taking a job in Washington D.C., which would have been uh, a big jump for me and that kind of thing. And I was kind of excited about it, but on the other side, I had an opportunity to come back to Little Rock and Power 92, and my family was here and everything else was here, and um, I took that. I came back here, and it was for less money than what I would have made in Washington D.C. But it's the thing of loving what you like to do, and I love the people in Arkansas. Um, they evidently cared a lot about me, and they showed it when I came back, and it just kind of worked out. And from that point on, it just seems like my career kind of took off after that. And that's when the TV show kind of came in, because I had an ideal at that time. It was MTV and all of that stuff, but no one had a local television show where they showed videos. And that's basically what the show started off with, was just basically showing videos. And it kind of uh, went into a different direction with live shows and things like that. And it wasn't very easy to record things back then. As recording equipment and things like that became more available and more accessible, then we were able to put on a much better product and a quality product. And actually, for a lot of people, my son, back in the early 2000s, my son was in high school, and I had that high school talk with him about, well, son, you're gonna be graduating in another 3 years, and you got to figure out what you're gonna do. So, uh, what do you think you're gonna do? And he told me what he wanted to do. And at the time, I'm looking at my house, and I got about I don't know, you may not know about this, but some of the viewers may know about noni juice. And back in the 2000s, have you ever heard of noni juice? Okay,
That's new to
it's this
me.
juice. It was this juice that comes in this bottle back then in the early 2000s, and everybody was selling noni juice. It's supposed to give you this thing and make your body this. I don't know what's happened to noni juice, but my son was somebody got him to selling it, and I was his biggest customer. So I was buying up all the noni juice. And so when I asked him what he wanted to do when he finished high school, he said he wanted to sell noni juice. And I'm thinking to myself, I got a problem. Like, Houston, we got a problem. Because he don't know he ain't a good noni juice salesperson because I'm buying all the juice. And so I kind of talked to him a little bit. And I said, well, when I was graduating in high school, there was a thing they called Manpower. It was the tech school. And here in Jacksonville, you could go to Metropolitan Boatech. And I said, why don't you do like your brother? He has an older brother, and he went to Metropolitan Boatech when he was in high school. And so I kind of talked with him about it. But you know how kids are. He wanted to do it, but he didn't want to do radio. So he went on and got into TV. And, and so when he graduated from high school, he tried out college for a little bit. Then he said, Dad, I'm going to this. And he was lost. That's why, as early as we talked about being in high school and not knowing what to do. I mean, he was just lost, not knowing what to do. He decided to go to videography school, and that's what he wanted to do. And after I wasted money sending him to college for a year or so,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, well, I don't know if I want to waste any more money on youth, and especially when I'm seeing how much this videography school is going to cost. So we gave it a shot, and he went on to videographer school. And then this was after he graduated from high school. But when he was in high school, he actually started producing my TV show. And that's how we got to this. He started producing my TV show, and he went on to Metropolitan, and he started learning more and more and more. And then he started telling me about, Dad, you got to get better equipment. You got to get this, and you got to get that, and you got to get this. And I'm looking at how much this stuff costs, and I'm thinking, man, I don't know about all this stuff. You know, this, that, and the other. And so we invested in some better equipment, and he went on to videography school and came back here and worked a little bit for Fox 16 and Channel 4 with his first job. And about 3 years ago, he got an opportunity to go and work at ABC in Atlanta. And so that's where he's been for the last 3 years. He works for ABC Channel 2 in Atlanta. But it all started with him at Metropolitan and producing my TV show and learn that camera. And for anybody out there that's watching, and you're talking about getting into TV and radio, and especially in TV, just know that for every one of those celebrities and stars that you see on TV, there's a cameraman. There's somebody in the camera, and those are some good jobs. I just want you to know, some real good jobs. There are producers, there are people that work in production. There are a lot of great jobs behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to say that to a lot of our young people out there that may be thinking that they want. There's so many great opportunities. And what I don't see is a lot of us that don't know what you want to do. Behind the scene is really a good place to be, and they pay good money in TV. Just wanted to say that, and radio if you get the right place. So that's how my TV show got to going. And like I said, I want to think it's been close to 30 years now that we've had an opportunity to be on CW Arkansas.
What kind of relationship do you have with the kids, and how awesome has it even been to see them grow into who they are today? And you talk about even working with one of your sons. How awesome has that been to see? And were you ready for the father role? How did you, if not, did you grow into it quickly, or what was that frame like for you?
Well, I think I grew into it pretty good. I had had adopted father, and then after my adopted father died and my adopted mother died, at the age of 30, I was able to find my mother, and at the age of 40, I was able to find my father. But my adopted parents, I was brought up in church, I was brought up in love. When I found my parents, it was the same thing. I was brought up in loved. They were a very loving family, and uh, my my father was a very fatherly man. I mean, he was. I just lost him in January, as a matter of fact. But he was a he was a very good man. Um, I remember when I first called him and told him that I thought that he may be my father. He started doing some investigating because, you know, it was a long time ago, as he said, when 40 years ago, I was telling him about something that actually happened 41 years ago. And come to find out, he didn't really know a lot about it because my mother never told him. And he was in the military, and he had been overseas and that kind of thing. And the crazy thing about it is, I was raised about maybe, I would say, 15 miles or less than 15 miles away from where my father and the fam and everybody really was. But I never knew anything about it in high school. Never found out anything about it. But I can tell you that my father the um, uh, was the matriarch of our family. He kind of kept everybody together, and he just believed a lot in family. And both of them were the same way, and two loving mothers. So I kind of carried that stuff on with my family and my kids. I mean, we did a lot of stuff together. Uh, Back then, while we were doing the TV show, the radio station used to do cruises, and we would go and do old school parties on the cruise and take them for the TV show and stuff. So, me and my son, I think we got both of them, and my daughter, all of them. We're all on family terms. I mean, it's like what I say on the radio about family, we got, that really comes from the heart, and I believe in that. And we look out for one another. And I mean, it's like sometimes you may not agree with everything that somebody's doing or what they're saying, but it's family, and so we work those things out. So that's kind of how it's been with me and my children and the family. They're they're always calling dad for advice and things like that. And my son and I, both of them, we kind of talk quite a bit because whenever there's something coming up, then it's a manly thing, job situations or something that coming up and they want advice about, they'll call me and ask me questions about it. What do you think about this? And I that's what fathers do, and that's what parents do. It's just being a parent. So we had a great relationship. My son played football for me when he was little league, and he tells me that I was his toughest coach, by the way, because he would get the game film. We would go over the game films. We'd talk every day after practice, and I really didn't. I really didn't do a lot of coaching or negative stuff with him. I always try to stay positive with him and what the things that he did. So hopefully those things he will cherish in his life and continue to do the same thing for my grandchildren. So I think we have a pretty good relationship as a family. My
Um,
wife is and let me say this, my wife is probably the most loving person that I could have ever married.
mhm.
Um, I mean, everybody that meets my wife says, "Oh man, she's just this," and she is. She's just a, but she's just special. Let me say that she's special, not just for me, but for most people that meet her. She's probably one of the most giving people that I know. And I knew I was going to marry this lady because she was an officer in the military, and I was working at KOKY, and I wasn't really making a lot of money. And I what made me marry her was she had back then she had a 280Z, and I was going to the state fair, and somehow another I didn't have my car. I was in her car, and I had an accident, and it was tough to call her and tell her because her car was almost new, and I had to call and tell her that I had wrecked her new car. And when I called her, and I was really kind of hesitant, and I was like, "Baby, I hate to tell you this, but I got some. I had an accident in your car." And the first thing she said was, "How are you? You all right? Is everything all right? Are you good?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay, but I think your car was messed up." She said, "I don't care about that car. I'm concerned about you." That was, hey, that's Marion type, okay?
Mhm.
And so, and so the rest is history. We've been married now for over 30 years.
I love that. And I'm very fond of leaning on my family when times get tough too. Shout out to your wife, seriously. And shout out to my mama. Hey, mama. But yeah, family, I talked about that a lot of season one too. Family is probably the biggest thing for me. Nothing is possible without my family. I want to backtrack one time and then, because I didn't get to talk about this, and I really wanted you to kind of mention what you did at Falcon Jet. I know you got to talk about it a little bit with us a couple weeks back, but I wanted people to know what it is Falcon Jet is and what it is you did there. So go ahead. I just wanted you to talk about that a little bit.
Oh man, that Falcon Jet, it was a great job. It was a great story. I got a great story about Falcon Jet. Most of the people that work for me at the radio station have heard about Falcon Jet. I got a job at Falcon Jet, and I was a carpet installer. So I installed the carpet in the airplanes, and all of the interior and everything that you see from when you're looking out the windows and you see the little visor that you pull up and pull down. We did all of the interior installs in Falcon Jet. I gotta admit though, I wasn't very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did my job, and mainly they didn't put me on too much of the vinyl. I basically did most of the carpet. And I remember after being there for a couple of years, another job opening came available. And I remember going to my supervisor and say, "Hey, man, I'm going to apply for this other job over there, and I'm wondering if you could kind of say something for me, about this job. If I go and apply, it'll be a little increase in pay and all that." And he looked at me and said, "Booker, you lucky to be here." And the next day, I started looking for another job. So one of the growing things at the radio station, the guys will talk about. They'll say they'll say they'll say something like excuse me. They'll say, "Hey man, have you heard the Falcon Jet story? You don't want to be like Falcon Jet." And I say, "You always want to get in. You want to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to work your tail off because you don't want to be in a position where they can do it without you." So it's one of my lessons that I always try to teach young people is if somebody telling you that you're lucky to be there on that job, you need to be looking for another job because the that first time layoffs come, you're gonna be the first one to go. Luckily, I got away before they laid people off, and I took that job working there at the radio station, which didn't pay a lot of money, but it was something that I like to do.
I love that story. Thank you. Now I want to go back to your schedule. I want to know what it is. What's your schedule like on a day-to-day basis? I know you talked about earlier. You get up really early, about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. What's your schedule like, and how has your schedule changed from now to the beginning of when you started working at the radio station?
When I first started working, I just did my shift and went home.
Mm-hmm.
But when you become a supervisor, you have a lot more responsibilities. I've learned a lot of time management, and I think that's very important. In our business, time is money, and literally that's a true statement because we run commercials, and if a commercial miss, you're gonna go back and make up that time. It just missed. So time is very important. And so I have to do a really good job of managing my time. Even during COVID, it's kind of a slow season because of COVID. We don't have a lot of people in our building now, but it's very, very important for me when it comes to time management. That's probably the most important thing that I do is managing my time because even setting up this, that's why I wanted to do it early so we can kind of get it out of the way soon. Excuse me just a minute. When I get excited, which I'm kind of excited talking to you, when I get excited, I get to sweating, so I'm sweating a little bit. You got me sweating.
Sound like my pastor. For me, I think, when you get into a position where you're doing a lot of time management, it comes to a point where you're like, hey, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to take a lot of time out of my personal life, whether it's spending time with the family, the kids, enjoying life outside of your job, regardless. When you took the supervisor job and you kind of became the big boss, the big CEO, was there ever a moment of hesitation where you said, do I really want to have this many responsibilities? Do I really think I can handle this many responsibilities? Was there ever a time for that?
Okay, got another story for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my way to work at KOKY when it was the AM, when Power 92 came on the air. And it was a friend of mine that went over to work for Power 92. And he basically ran me off the road and said, "Hey, Joe, I got this job for you. You to come on over here, man. They want to hire you over at Power 92 and that kind of stuff." And I'm like, "Well, man, I got this job over here. And I don't know if I'm going to get that job. So I'm going my way to this job." And I was going to work. He ran me off the road, and I ended up calling in and saying I'd be a little bit late. And I went over and interviewed for the Power 92 job. And I remember when I was doing the interview, I was basically hired before I got there. And the guy asked me, he said, I asked, "Well, what's the salary?" And he told me what it was. And I was like, "Man, that's $3,000 less than what I'm making now." And he said, "Well, that's what's in the budget, and that's what I can afford to pay." And he said, "You probably need to, talk it over with your family and this kind of stuff." And I looked back at him and I said, "Okay, I'll take the job." And he said, "You're not going to talk it over with your family? You need some time? I know it's less money than what you're making now." And I said, "Nah, I want to take this job because one day, hopefully, I will be sitting in your chair."
Mm-hmm.
And 3 years later, I got an opportunity to sit in his chair. So I think that a lot of times you gotta, as they say it, you get rid of the negativity, and if you say it and you mean it, you got to speak it into existence. And I think that's a little bit of some of the success for me is if I really, really believe in something, I'm going to go 200%, not 110, but 200% at that goal and what I really, really want. And I think that that's the key thing. People will help you when they know you really want it. People will work with you when you show them that you are committed to doing something. And I don't think anybody's ever doubted my commitment to doing my job, especially at the radio station. I love what I do. I think for me, it's the best job in the world. I can't think of anything else that I'd like to do other than that. And people say, "Well, when are you going to retire?" And I'll retire when I stop having fun. Or when they tell me they don't want me no more. Mm-hmm. Whichever comes first.
Have fun with it. I do this every episode, and I especially want to do this with you because I think you're one of the best communicators we have in our country. And when I say that, I think one of the key things that is lost in today's society is communication. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons due to social media. And we don't know how to communicate with each other anymore. So my question is, 200 years from now, someone searches your name, they don't know who you are, but someone tells them your name. What is the one thing that you want people to know about you that they may not know? What is one legacy? What is the legacy that you want to leave when you're gone? What is the thing you want people to remember about you?
Well, there are a lot of things I can think of, but God has always been first in my life. Then it's my family, and being a good family man is very important. Mm-hmm. And I know you know that because of the households now that don't have fathers in it. I was raised with a father. It was my mission to make sure that my children had a father in the household. But I would hope that people know I was a good family man and I took care of my family. Community service and family are two things that are very important to me. I use the analogy all the time that my father gave me, and that was that you always have to have your hand open. And what he meant by that was giving. You can't get anything with your hand being closed, and you don't give anything with your hand being closed. So I always like to feel like I have an open hand to where I can get blessings and I can pass them on. I can get things and I can give them to other people. I feel like that when I get information and I give it to someone that's going to help them to better their life. Those things that to me are things that I would hope that people could remember that I was able to do with my career in the radio, from the talk show to the morning show to those type of things that I've been able to do, and even the TV show, is just being able to make a difference in my community by helping people get out information. That's what we do. So I think those things are very important, and that's what I would like for people to remember the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with every single thing you just said. I really do. And as I wrap things up, I want for you, I know you're going to be willing to, but you've been able to give a lot of good advice out. Um, and if I didn't touch on any questions for any other person that they may have, would you be willing to put out any social medias that people can reach you on, to have any further questions that
Sure.
people can reach you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, you can always get me at the radio station. BJOE 923 is where you can get all my social, from Instagram to Twitter to Facebook, all of that. It's BJOE 923. If you go to Power 923 Jams, you can pull me up there at on the Power 92 page, and it gives you my talk show information. It gives you information about me and things that we do, from the Power People poll questions to everything else we do on our show. So that's the best way to get me. It's real easy. BJOE 923, and I'll be glad to respond to you. I do have someone that works with me on social media, so if you hit me, I will definitely hit you back, and I do get the information, and I try to be as timely as possible at getting back with you if there's something that you need. But I thought it was, and I wanted to say this, I thought it was very important for me to do this interview with you today, because we have to part of giving back to our young people. I want you to know I was very excited that you want to be in the broadcast field, because I think broadcasting is a very exciting field to be in, journalism. And a lot of people, they may not know this, but I know you've seen him. Those are the kind of things, for me, being here in Little Rock. A lot of people don't know it, that TJ Holmes, who is now a major news anchor now on ABC, actually worked at Channel 11. Mm-hmm. But while he worked here, he would also do fill-ins on my morning show. So I got an opportunity to be with him, but to see him where he is now, and a lot of other people that have come through Arkansas and been able to use it as a stepping stone to further their career, those kind of things I think are great things for us, as just being a part of someone that's, as you could say, that's doing news for ABC on a national level like him now, and just a really good guy. Most of the people that I've had an opportunity to meet, successful people like that, it's always an honor to see them move on and do great things. And so those are the kind of things that you're able to do. A question similar to what you say, you know, when you're not there, you visit any type of cemetery, there's a dash in there, born this date, dash, and the end date. But what's in the dash? What's your dash? What did you do during your life? Who did you touch during your life? I always believe that, and we do this thing with my good friend Ron Huff, and he talks about worshiping people and worshiping things. There's some people that worship money. There's some people that worship things. But when you're dealing with people and you are touching souls, your legacy in your life will live on and on and on, because you touch someone and not something. So I would just hope that I've touched some people during my life, and hopefully it was a positive touch and they could pass it on to someone else. So that's it for me, man. I really appreciate this opportunity. I want to thank you for asking me to be here, and hopefully drop some knowledge here today that can help somebody in furthering their life and furthering their career, because that's the big thing about it, is helping other people. And I would hope that other people will help other people. Sometimes you don't know, just some kind words can make a difference in someone's life. But those are the kind of things that we all have to do a better job of, including myself, when it comes to touching souls, because that's a special thing when you can touch someone's soul.
Amen. Amen. You said that, and there's a quote from the late Stuart Scott, and he was probably the biggest influencer I had on wanting to become a journalist. He said, "Life is just 2 days with a dash in between." He said, "Make the dash count," and simple as that. So I truly did. Yeah, I appreciate you for spending the time with me this afternoon. Thank you. It means the world to me. All blessings to you and your family. Stay safe during these times. Keep working hard. And also one more thing for the people that are in Arkansas and may not know what times you're on the radio. Could you let them know when you're on the radio and when your television show comes on TV?
Oh yeah. Every morning, 6 days a week from 6 to 9. Every morning, 6 to 9 on Power 92. You can also catch my talk show every Thursday on 1021 KOKY, 1025 Praise FM, and a rebroadcast is Saturday morning, 6 o'clock at Power 923. Video shows 2 a.m. CW Arkansas every Saturday night, Sunday morning. Don't miss the Broadway Joe video show. They always got some, you never know what you might see on the video show.
Never know. Any shout outs you want to give to anyone? Just any shout outs, and then we appreciate
hey man,
you.
Shout out to Arkansas, people of Arkansas. Thank you for the love for so many years, and I want to send some special props out to you and much success on your broadcasting career and your journalism career, brother. Anything else the lead dog can do for you, make sure you holler at me, man. And hootie, hootie, hoo. Hootie, hoo!
God bless everyone. I want to give a shout out to Miss Nicole Griffin for giving me the opportunity to sit in a couple of weeks ago with Mr. Booker in his first interview with her class, and now the opportunity is to thank you, Miss Griffin. And I want to give a quick shout out to my aunt Margaret. I call her TT, and I know she's going to be stoked when she listens to this episode. I tell you what, Mr. Booker, every single day, 92.3 The Jam. She's got it on in her Honda. Never misses a day.
Thank you.
So shout out to
make sure you
TT.
tell Ms. Griffin I said hi also too, man. I gotta send a shout out to Ms. Griffin, man. The great work that she's doing. She's almost like a journalist herself, man. I was great, man. I probably would have never had an opportunity to know all the information that I know about David Robinson. That was a great Zoom that she did, and I was very honored to be on there, man. That was good, man. It was just great. So make sure you tell Ms. Griffin I said a special hi to her too, and thank you. I did get a card from her the other day, and a thank you as well as a little gift card. So make sure you tell her that I really appreciate that, and keep up the good work over there at Eastdale.
We will do, and I would tell her that I'm sure she will. That would brighten up her day. I talked to her earlier. She said she was feeling a little down, and I wished her the best. So I'm sure that news will get her a little grinning chin to chin. So I'm sure she'll like that. God bless everyone. Thank you for the support, man. Thank you for the continued support. Thank you for episode 2, and I'll see you guys next week. God bless everyone. Stay safe.